and I'm standing behind my friend. And the guy, he was just trying to like scare him. He takes the gun, points it away from his head, and pulls the trigger behind him, almost fucking shoots me. Michael D'Angelo, and I was in the Marine Corps, and I served from 2008 to 2013. So I'm born and raised in Las Vegas. For like the first 5 years, things were all right. My dad was a pretty successful business guy, ran a construction company. By 1995, my dad had lost everything. He was doing dope and chasing my mom, who was also doing dope, and it just turned into like this really went from like living in a custom home and having like a housekeeper and my dad like running this company to like living on people's floors, bouncing around. I went to a different school every year from kindergarten all the way up through high school. The home life was so unstable that my parents like couldn't keep me from like being out in the streets, as much as they would like try to, be like, oh, you don't be out being crazy and stuff. Like they kind of knew like whatever I was doing outside wasn't as bad as what was going on inside the home, in all these different places we lived. And my mom was like, she took off. My sister ran away. My dad was, working, but he was in and out of jail. So I was kind of on my own, like by myself a lot, to the point where, I didn't have any brothers or anything. So when I was out in the streets and I ran into these kids that were, also wild kids from crazy upbringings and shit, they kind of gave me this thing that I couldn't find anywhere else. And I like just went all the way into being a wild street kid. I mean, I was, I think it comes from, being born out of like my mom being a drug addict and who knows what she was on when she had me. Plus just living in like uncertainty as a kid, I kind of lived for the thrill of just excitement, call it an adrenaline junkie or whatever. But I like had this big thrill of just running around in the streets all day, all night with these kids. And we were always up to like crazy chaotic stuff. And from a young age of like, not like hurting anybody or nothing like that when you're a young kid, but just, you know, chaos, just causing like mischief and shit, whether it was like sneaking into people's houses when they weren't home and eating shit out of their fridge, crazy shit like that, to like, eventually like small theft and shit like that. And then you do start like, who doesn't love breaking a window when you're a kid? It's very exciting to do shit and get away with it. You cause a little bit of havoc just so the cops show up, just because you want to run from the cops. You just want the thrill, you want the excitement. And my home life just got like progressively worse, because my dad was so successful and he lost everything, and my mom was, kind of putting him through the ringer. She was like hardcore manipulator. I was constantly seeing adults like lie to each other, manipulate one another, and just the shit you shouldn't see as a kid, especially from like your parents. Really setting the stage for like what I was to expect out of anybody that was an authority, or people that were supposed to like love you, or people you were supposed to trust, or people that were supposed to be caring for you. At the time, I thought like, oh, I'm just like, I grew up fast, because I had to like take care of myself early, and I felt like I was streetwise because, I'd meet other kids and they didn't see the things that I had seen. And my parents just like progressively got worse and worse. My dad started getting like real angry, not necessarily at me, but just like at the world, because he went from like super successful to poor. Like we were homeless at times, living in the truck, me, him, and just our dog, and like living in just the worst places, living on the floor at other people's houses and shit. I was like the lice kid for a while. Some kids got lice. I was giving that shit out, man. I was a dirty ass, nasty kid. We lived on a lot of people. I remember during 9/11 when the towers hit, we were living on the floor somewhere in some other fucking tweaker family's house. Like you remember people like, where were you on 9/11? I was fucking itchy on someone else's floor, dude. I was in fifth grade, I think, and we were living with this family that my dad was cooking dope with, and they had like a son and a daughter, and the daughter was like real young, the son was about my age, and we lived in their living room. We lived on their living room floor for like a couple of years. And I remember one morning my dad was on the couch, I'm on the floor sleeping, and I woke up and the TV was on, and the first plane had already hit the first tower. And I'm fucking fifth grade, like I don't really know the magnitude. I'm just like, oh, some crazy shit. I wake my dad up and he rolls over. He's like, what's up? I was like, a plane hit the Twin Towers. And I was like, oh, what the fuck? This is crazy. And like, again, like my world is in such turmoil, like some plane hitting a tower on the East Coast, like it means nothing to me. But they took me to school that day still, and went to school, just watched it on the TV. So it's the fifth grade class, they're just showing us people jumping out of buildings on fire and shit all day long. We're like, yeah, I guess this is what you do for kids, keep them up to date on the news. My dad would like get his shit together. He'd like get a job working for the union, and we'd get like an apartment somewhere, and then my mom would come back and she'd live with us for a little while, and then she'd steal from my dad and cause chaos and get us like evicted from a place. And we'd be homeless again, and then me and my dad would like bounce around for a little while, and then we'd get a place again, and then he'd let my mom come back, and and I just kept watching him let her come back and ruin everything, and it was like fucking my head up. I in a way I lost a lot of like respect for my dad at the time, as an adult. Now I have a little more perspective, like what it's like to, be in love with a woman and think that you can help somebody and fix them, and like you had kids with this person, you were married to this person. But yeah, he just drugged me through all of it. I mean, he didn't really drug me through it. I was just with him through all of it. Saw a lot of like really fucked up shit that you shouldn't see as a kid. When I was in fourth grade, because my dad was selling dope, our house got raided, our apartment that we were in got raided, and the SWAT team like kicked our door in. And at the time, my mom was there, my sister was there. And they came in, they searched our place, and they actually couldn't find any dope. They were pissed too. They like beat the shit out of my dad. They destroyed our apartment. They beat up my mom, beat up my sister. They kicked our dog around. They took everything out of every dresser, every drawer, every cabinet. They piled it in our living room. They stomped on it and they pissed on it. And as a kid, I was like, I was like, I didn't know what to think. But at the time, like I had already been through so much that I was like, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, what else is new, but I was kind of like, it's like when you just have the ringing in your ears of life, and I just carried that for like the next few years. What's interesting about that night is I was actually at a concert with a friend that lived in the neighborhood, and I'm like in this concert, like we're like hanging out, I'm like having a good time with my friend, and my sister is there all of a sudden, and she's like a wreck, and I'm like, she's like, hey, you got to come with me. You got to come outside. Mom and dad are in jail. The house got raided. And I come outside, and there's like a vice officer in like a little like Crown Vic or unmarked Crown Vic. And they're like, yeah, we got to take you to Child Haven. And my friend's mom was like, he can't come with us. We can't take care of him. They're like, no, he needs like his parent or guardian to da-da-da-da-da. So they take me to Child Haven. I'm in Child Haven for like 2 weeks. And at this point, like my life's been so much turmoil after this that I'm like, this is it. State took me, like, bye, mom and dad, makes sense. But I'm like a bit of a wreck about it. Like this is like as serious as it's been so far. And I don't hear anything from anybody. Like I'm getting no word. My sister was with me in the car when they dropped me off at Child Haven. They were taking her to jail. And what's funny, they couldn't find any dope, but my dad had warrants, my mom had warrants. They took my sister to jail on, they thought they found dope. It was like acrylic nail powder. So she got out of jail in like a couple of days. But like 2 weeks later, my mom and my dad get released, and my mom immediately wants to go get high. My dad's like, no, we got to go fucking get Michael out of Child Haven. Like, we got to go get him. My dad comes to get me, and he's all fucked. He's all bruised up and shit. He's been all fucking beat up in the face. And we go back to our apartment right away, and it's all like sealed off and shit. And we fucking break back into our apartment, and everything in our apartment is like piled up in the living room. It's smashed, and it smells like piss, and there's a cooler, one of our like, for like the beach and shit, it's like full of piss. And my dad starts telling me the story of everything that happened and shit. And I'm just like, holy shit, dude, like this is nuts. And we would like sneak into that apartment, which was like kind of a ritual of ours. Every time we get evicted from a place, like they would like lock the door, seal it up and all that shit. And then we would break in every night to like keep sleeping there. But yeah, that happened. And but throughout the years continuous, I had seen the cops like beat up my dad in person many times. One time we were working on a house, like my dad would get all these like odd jobs, construction site jobs, just like trying to get money to feed us. And one night we were working on a house, just like prepping it for the job, for like painting the next day. We were working like late. We're in this house with like, it's like a vacant house, so there's like no power. We got like floodlights on and shit, and we're like basically like prepping everything. We're sanding the walls, we're taping shit off, and we're like leaving the house, and these fucking squad cars pull up. And they're like, what are you guys doing? And there's someone called the cops, because of course we're in this house late and we got like lights. People think we're robbing the fucking house. It's a vacant house. And they put my dad in handcuffs and they run his shit. And he's got like warrants and all this shit. And you know, they have everything on him. And they're like, oh, you like to, you know, they're basically like telling him like, oh, we got you for this and this and this and this. Like, where's the dope? Like, you got all these records. Where's all the shit? I mean, it's like, I don't have anything. I'm not doing that shit right now. He's like, normally I'm high. I'm not high right now. Like, I don't have anything. We're literally, you can go in there. Like, we just taped off all this. Like, we're in paint whites, you know, we're in like work clothes. And they start like smacking my dad around while he's in handcuffs. Like, tell us, motherfucker, why you lying to us? And just, I'd seen shit like that over and over with like my dad just like getting roughed up by cops. When I was about like 13, 14, I think I was like in 6th grade, I started like smoking weed with a friend, kid that I met in like middle school, but I never touched like any like no speed or coke or nothing like that, because I watched my parents like destroy their lives with that shit. I never got involved with that. But being a street kid, you know, eventually I ran into like kids that were like smoking weed and shit and drinking. By the time like it had been so much like just homelessness, chaos, running around out in the streets having fun, that by the time I got into middle school, I was running into kids that were like drinking, and I took to drinking right away. I started like, you know, all the MD 2020s and 40s and just all this shit that kids like to fucking drink because they think it's cool, you know. In middle school, I drank like a lot. Never blacked out or anything, but like just getting pissed drunk in like 6th and 7th grade with friends, and getting into like fights with each other, and just going into like different neighborhoods, different parts of town, and getting into fights with random kids in different neighborhoods. And it kind of, that's where things started to like really snowball, where like I think because I was so self-aware like at such a young age, and I had watched my parents like destroy themselves, and I was constantly seeing all these adults like just not have any control over their lives, and I was like, it turned me into kind of a control freak, where I was like, I never wanted to be put in a position where I couldn't, you know, just make a decision, or I didn't want to feel like powerless. So as like I started to hang out with all these kids, and we started to like drink and have fun and stuff, like it was fun and it was exciting, but I always had this like idea in my head where I was like, I eventually like, I want to have control over my life. Like, I want to be able to pay my own bills. I want to have a job. I want to keep a job. I want to like have a car and have that car run. Like my dad, every truck we ever had was always breaking down. We were working on it. I've dropped transmissions with my dad. It's just a fucking nightmare to always be trying to conquer these things that seemed like why does nobody else have these fucking problems, you know? And as I was like hanging out with these kids, getting into trouble, as we got older, it slowly like started escalating, where I think these kids were just different, but they didn't idealize like this idea of like, one day all my shit will be together and I'll have control and I'll be an adult and things will be okay. And I slowly started to like kind of separate myself from the group, at least mentally, where like, you know, we went from just like, you know, sneaking into people's houses and breaking shit and stealing shit from the grocery store and getting into fights with each other, to like guys started stealing cars, guys started selling weed, and then they started selling like meth and shit, and then they started carrying guns, and then they started like, my buddies started getting hauled off to like youth camps and shit. They would go to like a youth camp for 9 months, they'd come back, and you would think like, oh, maybe it'd be better. Then they go to juvenile hall, and it just like, everybody slowly started getting into worse and worse shit. And I was like, that's why I consider myself so lucky. I was like always just barely not, like I've never been to jail to this day. I've been in child haven, never been to jail, and all my buddies were constantly going to jail. And we got handcuffed a lot. Like I've been in handcuffs hundreds of times, whether it was like with my parents as like the kid that was just with the drug addicts, they put me in handcuffs too and searched me, or just running around out in the streets with these fucking wild ass kids, because we ran in like a pack of like 7 or 8 of us. So anytime like the cops stopped us, it was like gang unit. They'd stop us, put us all in handcuffs, take all of our pictures, because they all thought like, if you're not up to shit now, you will be later. We'll have a fucking record of it. But my buddies, like that was another thing too, is I had seen the cops already like beat the shit out of my dad. And I had all this experience with like, the cops can do whatever the fuck they want. But my buddies, like, anytime we get stopped by the cops, they just talk shit to cops. And I was always like, yes, sir, no, sir. But my buddies just constantly figuring out ways to piss off a cop. And I've seen buddies in handcuffs get beat up and shit. And it got to the point where finally, when I was 16, it was 4th of July, one of my good buddies was out in the middle of the street, and this truck drove by, and it's like 4th of July, we're all like partying, we're drinking, we're getting ready to like light a blunt, and my buddy's like out in the street just drunk, and this truck stops, and he's like talking shit to the people in the truck, and someone gets out, and it's like, these are adults, gets out, and my buddy starts fighting with this guy, and then everybody gets out of this truck, and they surround my buddy, and I hop this wall, and I run out into the street to go like help my buddy, and I'm in the middle of all this chaos, and next thing I know, someone from my group is they make it up the street to us, and someone's got a gun, and they put it to somebody's chest, and everybody stops, and the guy that I was fighting with, in his hand, he's got like this, he's got like a neon yellow handle with a razor in his hand, and he goes, look at your face. It sliced my fucking face open. I didn't even know my face was hanging open. It happened so fast, you know, adrenaline, razor so sharp, had no fucking idea. And I reach up, put my hand into my face. I'm like, oh, fuck. And I run back up the street. I go into a friend's apartment. And it was like, at this time too, we had all been like, because of the drugs and the violence and all that shit, like, even though we were like 15, 16-year-old kids, we were hanging out with a lot of adults in the neighborhood that were doing all this shit. They kind of like took us under their wing as like, you know, they're young bucks, you know? And I was at this guy's house, ran into his apartment, and his wife or his girlfriend or whoever brings me like this clean rag. She sees my face, she gives me a clean rag, and I put it on my face. And to this day, when I smell that detergent, I'm like right back there in the kitchen. But I'm standing in front of his sink, and I pull the rag off my face, and he's got like a big mirror in front of his sink, and I just see my face hanging open, and I'm like, oh, fuck, man. And I still can't feel it, like I'm in no pain or anything, but I'm like clearly in shock. But the ambulance shows up, called 911 and all that. And to this day, like, the dude who did it didn't know who he was, wouldn't recognize him if I saw him, just fucking random strangers in the street. The 32 stitches sucked though. I felt every one of those. That shit fucking really sucked. Once that happened, my dad kind of like, he came online and kind of clicked on like, oh shit, like my son's gonna die in the fucking street if I don't. And he, like, at that point, he had been like working for the union a little bit longer. He had been clean for a little while, though I think he was still kind of using. But my mom, he had finally, like a couple years before that, he had like detached. Like, because I had told him, I was like, if you keep letting her come back, like I'm gonna take off. Like I can't keep watching her come in and destroy everything, and you let her do that. So we had been someplace, and he decided, because we were in kind of a shitty neighborhood, he moved us to a better neighborhood, and that was kind of like, it finally like scared him that he thought like he'd lose me to the streets. And right around that time was when I'd always worked on like construction sites with him to help him, but I got like my first job. Like I got a job at like Papa John's. Going back to like separating myself from all these wild ass kids, is I had this idea of like one day, you know, I'll be able to like, you know, be an adult and have all my shit together. So like the day I turned 15 and a half, I went down to the family courts, got my work permit, got a job, started working, saved every check, bought my first car. And once I had my car, like my world opened up. Now I'm just getting into like crazier shit in different neighborhoods, being wild. And then I get my face sliced open, and my dad kind of like pulls me in a little bit closer, like doesn't let me go out and do shit. And I kind of have this moment too where I'm like, at this point, the timing is like my buddies are starting, they're not just going to like juvenile hall, like my buddies are starting to go to prison, and they're like kids, and they're getting sent off. My buddies are starting to get shot, and stupid shit too, whether it's like getting shot by someone else or shooting themselves on accident with their own guns. And the thing is like, I'm with them for all of this shit. Like there were nights where we're riding around in my car, and there were these two hookers that lived in my buddy's apartment complex, and they would bring dudes over and fuck them, and we were always hanging out at these hookers' apartment playing like video games and shit, and they'd bring dudes in, fuck them in the room, and then leave. And one night we're driving my car around, and the hookers call my buddy and they're like, hey, these two dudes are trying to break into our apartment, da da da. And so we're like, let's fucking go. We're gonna whip these dudes' asses. And we get in the car, we head over there, and like a couple blocks away, we get pulled over. And my buddy in the back seat goes, yo, I have a gun on me. And I'm like, oh no, bro. And the cop comes up to my window, and he like literally shines his light, and he goes, where you guys going? He's like looking at all of us. And we're like, oh, we're just going to our friend's house. And he just like looks at everybody in the car, doesn't ask for ID, goes back to his car, gets his car, and leaves. And we're like, oh shit, dude. Like I felt the prison doors closing around me. Like it was scary as fuck. And a lot of like close calls like that where like shit where my buddies were getting, and what's funny is that the hookers had called the cops. So the cops were looking for those dudes. And that's what they thought we were. Because my first car was a baby blue Cadillac Coupe de Ville. It was like this, it had Vogue wheels on it. I looked like a fucking degenerate. There's so many close calls like that. And again, like I was always very respectful of the police, and I just never got taken in. All my buddies were getting constantly caught up, and I was like always just so close to like getting, whether I was getting shot or fucking murder or any crazy shit was like right there. One time we were standing in a buddy's front yard, and it was two friends, and they were just mad at each other, beefing with each other. And one of them had a gun. He had this .357 Magnum, and he had it pointed at my friend's head, and I'm standing behind my friend. And the guy, he was just trying to like scare him. He takes the gun, points it away from his head, and pulls the trigger behind him, almost fucking shoots me. It's crazy shit like that. And like I'm having this awareness where I'm like, I have to get away from these guys. At that point, even though we had like a place to live and my mom wasn't there anymore, it was a little more stable, my dad was so angry at the world. Not necessarily at me, but he was just like a very angry person. He was just so upset. Everything set him off. And he'd drop something and just freak out and go into this like fucking shout. He would freak out all the time. And I just couldn't be at home. And so I was like, I'm always outside. I can't get away from them. I was like, I have to get the fuck out of here. And I knew that if I didn't like separate myself, I was gonna end up dead or in prison. And so the middle of my junior year, they released us for like winter break. And I went to the office and I got my transcripts, and I went to community college and I gave them to them. I was like, I want to take my GED. And they let me take my GED. Like 2 weeks later, I got the results. And then I went into the Navy recruiting office and I was like, hey, I want to join. I want to be a Navy SEAL, you know? And they were like, we're not taking GEDs right now. I was like, oh, well, I just left high school a year and a half early. Like, what do I do? And they were like, you can go to the Marine Corps office. They might take you. I fucking walked into the Marine Corps office and they were like, we're not taking GEDs either, but we can take you to this adult ed school. They'll have you take a couple of tests. You'll basically test out all the subjects. We'll get you another diploma. Did that. 2 weeks later, got the adult ed diploma, and I fucking signed up to join. My dad was like, are you sure you want to do this? I was like, yeah, I gotta get the fuck out of here. So I joined when I was 17 and a half. That's where I fucking got my first taste of like just getting fucked by the Marine Corps, because when I was in such, I fucked myself too, because I was so eager I was in such a rush to get the fuck out of there, that my original contract was like, it was in September of 2008, and I was supposed to be like motor T. I had like a $10,000 sign-on bonus. It was active duty. I was like set to go. And I told my recruiter, I was like, hey, if someone drops out of this delayed entry program, like I'll take their spot. If I can leave early, like I don't care. I don't need to tell anybody. Like I'll leave fucking right now. And he was like, we'll let you know if something opens up. Sure enough, like it was like about a month earlier to leave, someone had left, and he was like, hey, we can get you out a month early if you want. I was like, let's do it. He's like, you got to change your MOS. I was like, okay, what is it? He's like, you won't be a truck driver. You won't be like motor T. You'd be a machine gunner. I was like, that sounds fucking cool, dude. Let's do that. He goes, and you'll lose your sign-on bonus. I was like, I don't fucking care. Who cares? He goes, and you got to be a reservist. And I was like, what's that? He goes, so you go through schooling and all that. You come home, check in with your unit here, and then you go, 2 weeks out of the summer, 1 weekend out every month. I was like, oh, I don't want to come back to Las Vegas. That's why I'm joining. I'm trying to get out. I need to get away from Las Vegas. And he fucking span his little recruiter web, dude. He was like, oh, man, you just submit your paperwork to go active duty once you check into your unit, and they'll make you active duty. I was like, oh, okay. He's like, and he sweetened it up. He fucking really like topped the cake. He was like, your unit that you're supposed to check in with, if you don't get recycled, you go through boot camp and machine gunner school. When you check in with them, they're going to Iraq, and that active duty paperwork takes a little while. So when you check in with your unit, You submit your paperwork, you go to Iraq. By the time you get back from Iraq, you'll be active duty, no downtime. You'll never be in Vegas. I was like, perfect. I join, I go through to boot camp. So boot camp was interesting because it was hard, of course, but I came from like I was so stressed out growing up with like constantly not knowing, what was going to happen next or where we were going to be, that boot camp was like, it was some of the best sleep I had ever got. I had never slept or eaten so well. And I couldn't, it was hard for me because realistically, it is all one big game. It's not real. Like nothing that's happening is real. It's all a big training thing. It's to put you in a place and to teach you things. And I couldn't get that out of it all seemed like so fake to me that I couldn't stop like making jokes about, like I couldn't take it seriously. Like I wasn't a shitbag. Like I did everything I was supposed to do, but like I kept getting in trouble for like laughing and smiling because people would like freak out. These kids would like break, and I'm just like, don't you like we're gonna eat, like we're gonna sleep, like everything's gonna be all right, everything's gonna be fine. And I just couldn't get into they couldn't stress me the way that everyone else was being stressed, and it showed to where like drill instructors would pull me, like I got counseled at some point, as they counsel everybody. They kind of pull you aside and talk about like your performance and all that shit. And they asked me, they were like, have you ever been been into therapy? And they started asking me about my childhood and my life, and I started to tell them, and they were like, okay. And I didn't connect the dots, but I think it was they started asking me all that shit because I was kind of like whatever baseline was for everyone else. I kind of like stood out, and not like a performance wise, but just mentally, I just wasn't. I just didn't. Whatever the red line was for people when they were freaking out, I just never reached that red line. And get out of boot camp, and I go into machine gunner school, and then machine gunner school is finally where we're like really getting hazed. And then I get like the real taste of like, oh, okay, this does suck. Like this, like it's cold. The first, I check into machine gunner school in like the first week in November, or the second, like November, end of November, we get into Pendleton, and they just immediately put us in the field. And, classically these guys who are your instructors, they all came back from like, I joined in 08, so they all came from like the Fallujah. They're all those guys. They're all like getting out and shit, and they made them instructors. So they all have this like, we got to turn these fucking young Marines into like war fighters, So they think they're doing us good, but the first week in the field, it rains on us all day, and at night it clears up and the clouds go away. So it's like everything turns to ice. They won't let us use warming layers. There's like water where we're sleeping. They won't let us move our bivouac site, and there's water running through. So we're just like fucking frozen every night. And it's just, we're on the ranges, and it sucks. It's my first like real experience of like really having it suck. And then we're in the field for like 2 weeks, and then they send us home for Christmas. And we come home, I come home for Christmas, and then we come back. There's like 100 guys that go UA. Like it was crazy apparently. And I found out after the fact, but all the instructors were, that was an Alpha company. They were all under investigation from the last cycle because some kid jumped off the fourth deck and killed himself, because they're being really tough on the guys. And we similarly had kids try and kill themselves during our rotation as well. Nobody successfully, but it was like my first taste of like really, and it wasn't even, again, it wasn't like a stressful scenario. It was more of just like, I hadn't really like hiked until I was in machine gunner school. Then I had like really felt what it was like to have weight on my back and hike. And it was then that I like started to realize that I was getting high off of the thrashing, like whether it was running or rucking or just like general PT. I could feel like the and I didn't really know for sure what it was, but I could tell that I was like getting buzzed off it. And I started getting addicted to just being smoked. And while I was in machine gunner school, like if we had free time, guys are either Bible thumpers, alcoholics, or gym rats. And I just turned into like a hardcore gym rat. I was hiking on my spare time. I was like thrashing the piss out of myself. I get out of machine gunner school. I come home, I check in. I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm going to Iraq. Let's go. I'm going to be active duty. I check into my unit. Checking at like I get there, I check in like middle of the night, no one's fucking there. Of course, it's some reservist unit. There's nobody there. Fox Company 223. We split with Salt Lake City and Las Vegas. Half guys are in Salt Lake City. They call us Saints and Sinners. And I check in with like 2 other guys, and we're like out there at night, like nobody's there. It's at Nellis Air Force Base. There's like a Marine unit. It's a line company, and there's a motor T unit upstairs, and there's nobody there. So we're like, fuck it, we'll come back in the morning. We come back, and you know, we fucking check in. You know, you report and all that, and they like, you know, they ask, you guys, is all your shit together? You have any questions, anything you need to know? And I'm like, yeah, I'd like to submit my paperwork to go active duty. And it's at this point that they had told us, they were like, oh, that your unit, they started work up for Iraq like months ago. Like, you can't go, you're not going to Iraq. And I was like, ah, oh, fuck. Okay, well, like, I'd like to submit my paperwork to be active. And I'm like, you know, I'm fucking private nobody, bro. Like, they don't want to hear none of that shit from me. So they're like, no, you have a billet to be a reservist. Like, you're here for a reason. Like, you're not leaving. Like, you're supposed to be here. No, you can't go active duty, motherfucker. I was like, I can't submit my pay. Like, no, like, my recruiter said. And they're like, yeah, whatever, idiot. And I'm just like, fuck. Like, I'm like, and now I'm back in Las Vegas. And I'm like, this is not where I want to be. And I'm literally go back and hang out with those friends while I'm back. And sure enough, like the first night I hang out with them, we're at some shitty apartment complex in North Las Vegas Airport, by North Las Vegas Airport, and a giant fight breaks out. It's fucking chaos, and all these cop cars show up, and we all get fucking put in handcuffs. And this cop pulls, because at this point I have a cat card in my wallet, and this cop pulls me aside. He goes, "Yo, man, you're a Marine?" I go, "Yeah, I just got out of machine gunner school." He goes, "What are you doing hanging out with these fucking guys?" I go, "Well, they're all my friends from before I joined." He goes, "All these guys have been to jail. Like, they're all pieces of shit. Like, we're gonna let you go tonight. Don't ever fucking hang out with these guys ever again." He's like, "Get the fuck out of here, man." He's like, all these cops are Marines. He's like, "Get the fuck out." And he let me go. And that was kind of like the, oh fuck, okay. But I had this moment where I'm like, fuck, man, I'm right back in Las Vegas. Like, my recruiter lied to me. And I keep like pressing with my unit. I'm like, are you sure I can't do this? Like, how do I do it? What is there something? Can I do anything? And they're like, no, you can't do shit. So I wrote a letter to Senator Harry Reid, because I was like, bro, I'm not staying in Vegas. Like, I'm gonna end up dead or in prison. And my unit, they're telling me I can't do that. My recruiter clearly lied to me, not knowing what the shitstorm that's about to come. And so I write a letter to Senator Harry Reid. I'm like, hey, you know, and I basically like spill it out to him. Like, you know, I'm this kid from Las Vegas. I'm trying to escape my circumstances, and I joined the Marine Corps for a better opportunity. And I was told that I was going to be active duty, and I'm not active duty. What do I do? How can I be active duty? I'd like to be active duty, you know? And I'm thinking I'm going to get like orders in the mail that are like, you're going to wherever, you know? Fuck no. He calls headquarters Marine Corps like, hey, we got a young Marine down here that said he's being treated unfairly. And they call me in, and they just fucking light me up, dude. They scream at me and shit. And what's funny is like, they're like in trouble, because technically they should have done something for me. They should have put in paperwork for me, or there's a process to it, and they could have started. It wasn't a no, like they said. They could have and should have done something for me, and they just didn't, because they didn't want to. Of course, they don't want to. You're a fucking new guy. Shut up and fall in. And they kept like, when they were chewing me out, they're like, who the fuck told you? And the gunny that told me, like, in the first sergeant told me, I'm like, they did. You said no. And they're like, no, nobody told you. They start backtracking. Like, nobody told you that. You can do this. And I was like, kind of like, nah, man, like, you guys lied. Like, my recruiter lied to me, and then you just lied to me. Like, what are we doing here? Like, now I'm like super confused, and I'm just like, what the fuck's going on? Like, what do you guys want me to do? Like, I can't just like, I don't want to be here. You lied to me. I can't just like say, okay, yes, sir, and just like fall and just act like none of this is happening. Like, I need something to happen. And from there on out, like, the gunny that was kind of like in charge, my leadership treated me like a shitbag for a long time, because I had gotten them into a decent amount of heat for all that. And they would, from then on, like, anytime I was trying to go to a school, whether it was like go back to machine gun leaders course or go to like marksmanship school or something cool like that, they just lost my paperwork every time, or like they would do it all like, okay, you're getting ready to go, and then like a week before they'd be like, oh, you didn't get your blood work in. Blood work to go where? For what, motherfucker? Like, what are you talking about? So that just, they constantly like fucked me with that, and I'm stuck in Vegas, so I just like try to keep myself busy, and I realized that, you know, at this point I have this thrill of being, you know, being addicted to the getting smoked. So I'm like, I'm gonna start like a fitness training thing. You know, I was like, that's what I'll do. I'll take all this new shit that I've learned in the Marine Corps, and I'll bring it into like I'll do like a small company where I'm teaching people like, you know, maneuver under fire tactics, but it's more of like just to smoke you. Less of like, do you want to get in shape? And more of like, yo, I'm already a badass. Do you want to fucking go run this course? Like, I wanted to set up like obstacle courses and shit. So I bought all this gear. I bought like fucking, you know, all the sledgehammers and the medicine balls. I fucking ammo cans filled with sand. I got all these fucking rubber rifles and shit. And I got a bunch of big ass tractor tires, and I bought a truck, and I would load all that shit in. And I would go to parks, and I would like set up these courses and just like run people through them, people that were like training for different events. And I was doing that. I got jobs doing security, and I was trying to stay busy because I was like upset with the Marine Corps, and I was also upset that I was back in Las Vegas, and I was just trying to keep myself from like sitting and thinking about all this shit. So I just became like a hardcore workaholic. When I wasn't working, I was training. And that was another thing too, is like to punish me, my unit, they would like try and smoke me. So I was like, I'm just gonna be the baddest motherfucker I can be, and you can't do it. Like, you can't smoke me anymore. Like, I'll just laugh in your fucking face. So got like the first class PFT and all that shit. And when I wasn't, you know, drilling and shit, I was like working so much that I would like I had like 4 jobs. I would load all my work shit and different underwear and socks into my truck. And I would like put like cans of food in my truck, and I would go from job to job and just sleep in my truck between jobs. I'd constantly falling asleep at red lights because I was working so much. And then finally, you know, I got some good training. They sent me to Bridgeport for like cold mountain warfare training. And that was like some of the coolest shit I had ever done ever. That was again, like, it was like some of the hardest shit, but at that point I was so addicted to like the pump of like hiking and being just in the fucking worst environment that I like excelled. I remember they took us on this fucking, you know, instead of like hiking just a normal way, they took us up this fucking mountain, but they just circled the mountain as we went up it. So we never got to walk on a straight line. You're just constantly on the side of this fucking incline. We're miserable, you know, we haven't been fucking eating, and they're teaching us how to like butcher animals and shit. And I just remember thinking like, this is fucking awesome. Like, this is what I wanted. Like, this is the kind of training I wanted. Taught us how to like slit the goat's throat, fucking push out, come back in, all that shit. And then we like skinned it, and like taught us like how not to like fuck up the meat when you're taking it out, how to check it, make sure there's no, you know, marks on its lungs or its heart and all that shit. And then how to like cook it properly. We didn't do like what's that? We didn't do like a sear where they like left us out there type of shit. They didn't do that to us, but they taught us all the basic shit and just took us on these gnarly ass hikes that we were out in the field like the whole fucking time we were there, and it was intense, but it was awesome. It was like I finally got, you know, it was an AT. It was like an annual training. So all this time of like not being in the fleet, and then finally they're like, all right, we're sending you to Bridgeport. And it was like, it's like everything I wanted. I was like, oh, this is great. This sucks. This is cool. I'm having so much fun. And come back home, and again, just back to work and doing this training company. And I'm away from my friends now. Like, I don't see those guys anymore. I'm like focused on just like building my company up and just training, getting like really heavy into like fitness and training and being in really good shape. And then I get to go to Central America. We went to the jungle in Belize, and that was fucking incredible. I had never been to like, I'd never been in like hardcore humidity. I grew up in Las Vegas, like born and raised in the desert, and being in the jungle, I like thrived. Like the humidity, it was so good for like my joints and everything. I excelled. It was incredible. Like, again, just fucking smoking us through the jungle. Like, everybody thinks the jungle is just like trees and shit. No, it's like mountainous, it's hilly, and they fucking just smoked us hardcore. And that was the first time we had done like where they like purposely like didn't feed us for a few days and like left us out there. And again, it was like everything, it was the best. Well, and that was another thing is like with the reserves, like every time we did something, not everybody, but there's a large majority of guys that don't want to fucking be there, that are just like, for what they're not, they didn't want to be in the fleet, they want to be reservists. And I'm like just excelling. And I'm the guy that like, we get done with a run, I'm like, fucking let's keep going, to the point where like I'm pissing people off because I can't turn it off. I love it. I love just being fucking dirty and grimy and doing all the shit that I thought I was going to be able to go do. And I attract a lot of attention from like the guys that, they were active duty from the fleet and then they rotated in. They're like getting out and they end up being reservists later. All those guys fucking love me. They're like, bro, you would have fucking loved the fleet. You would have been great. Why won't you go active? And, I tell them the tale of everything and they go, oh, that's fucked up, dude. And they knew that they wouldn't let me go active duty, etc. And again, this whole time, I'm still trying to put in that paperwork and they just keep fucking me off. They won't do it. But, I'm building all these like friendships with guys that are good Marines and they're kind of validating me and like, nah, man, you're good. Like, cause I felt like shit, dude. I wanted to be in the fleet. Now I'm a fucking reservist and, there's great guys that are in there, but it's like, I felt like I wasn't, for a long time, I felt like I wasn't a Marine. I just felt like I was like, man, this isn't what I joined for. This isn't what I wanted to be. But I met a lot of good guys that just gave me that validation. Let me know like, yo, man, you're not fucked up. They're fucked up. Like they knew like our unit just, you get poor leadership and they're punishing you and they're shitheads. But because I did so well in Belize, a deployment rotation came up to go to Southeast Asia, and I got picked to go do it. So I got to go to Southeast Asia in 2011, and it was fucking awesome. This comes into like at the point now where I'm like starting to get in trouble for like, I'm starting to really be more comfortable with being me, because at first, for the first couple of years, anytime I was like in a position with my unit where we were doing something that required me to, for the first couple of years, anytime I was required to like be in a position where they had all this control over me and I was supposed to act a certain way and things didn't go a certain way, as things happen, things get fucked up all the time and people suffer for it. That's just a standard. I got really comfortable with like speaking up about it and speaking out, because I was like, I'm already like, you guys treat me like I'm fucking bottom of the barrel. Like I'm already fucked. You guys won't submit my paperwork. Like you can't smoke me anymore. I have first class PFT. Like I'm a fucking PT stud. Like I'm not afraid of any motherfuckers. Like what are you gonna do? So I didn't have any problem anytime we were put in a position where they fucked up or like things just were done incorrectly and people were suffering for it. I would speak up about that shit all the time. I would crack jokes about it or make fun about it, or, whether we're in the smoke pit or we're in formation, I always had 2 cents to say about shit, because I was disgruntled and I just wasn't afraid anymore, because I was like, you can't take anything else from me. And when we were doing our workup for Southeast Asia, we're on Pendleton, and because I was with the jungle guys in Belize. They put me in this cadre platoon, which was full of like all these like very senior Marines. I think I was like the lowest ranking guy in it, and it was all these units come together, right? So it's like there was like some scout snipers in there, and some guys from like, I think LAR guys were in there, but it was all these like senior Marines, and they kept like, fucking with us, and the snipers kept passing bum scoop to us. They kept like telling us shit that wasn't going on and fucking us over. And at one point they like had this formation where they told us some shit, and I'm thinking like they're fucking, like they just got done fucking with me about something. So I'm like, I asked whoever was speaking, I was like, are you a sniper? They're like, no, I'm not a sniper. Why? I go, because the snipers keep passing bum scoop. And that was like, it set off a ding of like, yo, who the fuck is this guy? Why is he snitching on us? And then the gunny that was in charge of that cadre platoon was one of the sniper guys. So like I pop up on his radar of like, who the fuck is this kid? And I'm just some smart ass with a scar on my face, right? Reservist. And a lot of these guys have been in the fleet and all that shit. So they think they don't even know me, right? We all come together for this evolution. And at some point, right before we leave to go to Japan, the word that I got was, hey, write an essay about yourself, because we're all coming from different units. We don't know each other. Write about yourself so everybody can get to know each other, So I wrote like this fucking 2-page thing of it was just about me and my life, and I was being silly and cracking jokes in it, really being myself in it. And I turned it in, and word comes back where they're like, hey man, what'd you put in there? I was like, oh no, I was what you guys told me. I just wrote, it's just about me. It's just about me. I didn't say anything about anybody. I didn't say anything about the Marine Corps. And they're like, no man, that was supposed to be about why you belong in the cadre platoon. I was like, oh man, that's not what you guys told me. You guys said to just write about yourself, right? Like a biography. And I got fucking chewed out again for not taking things seriously and writing this silly ass long essay. And it was funny, a bunch of people found it, and people were like, yo, that shit was funny as fuck, we read it. And it became this thing where, again, I ended up being, once we got into Japan and we started training to go on ship, and we were gonna go island hop through Southeast Asia, I just attracted a lot of attention for cracking jokes and shit and not taking things seriously. And when things were fucked up, I would comment on it. I was the first one to have 2 cents. When they release everybody and somebody have any questions, shut the fuck up, go ask your platoon sergeant. But it's you guys keep fucking us over so much and nobody's gonna say anything. I would be what are you gonna do to me? You can't make it worse for me. I like being, I want to be uncomfortable. I want to get smoked. All the shit that you guys can't do for me, I can only get when I'm in trouble. So let's push the bar. And I had gained so much from the guys that were good Marines that again came from the fleet. I gained a lot of respect from those guys because of my my work ethic. I knew all my shit. I was a great machine gunner. I knew everything that I needed to know, and I was a PT stud. So the guys that were about their shit like me, but all the shitty leadership that were making mistakes fucking hated me, because any chance I got, I'd fucking call them out or make a point to bring it up and ask when is this gonna be fixed? I was always the guy that was hitting that nail on the head. And eventually I had gotten kicked out of the cadre platoon, and they put me in a ship platoon. Backfired on them so hard because they put me on this ship platoon, and it made me work in the officers' ward. So I was serving food to the officers and cleaning all their shit, but I was hanging out with officers. And because I was always cracking jokes and talking shit, and I was this stud and I knew all my shit, I started being friends with the fucking landing force commander, was a friend of him. We would talk and hang out and shit, and he was cool with me. And I ended up having all these Marine friends of mine that I was always anytime things were bad because of some shitty decision somebody made, I was the guy that was lightening the mood. I was building the morale, boosting morale, building camaraderie and shit. And it got to the point where guys were man, if you don't become a comedian, bro, you're wasting your life. You're funny, dude. You got whatever that is. And when I was in Southeast Asia, even though I kept getting fucked over, I was still excelling at every opportunity they gave me to do something but we're doing beach raids. We're practicing beach assaults and shit. We load it. We're in our ship is a LSD, so we got Amtraks on there, and they load us on them. We fucking go out. We land on the beach and we rush in the beach, run into the jungle, up the hills and shit. And they made me a RO because I was the only guy that could fucking carry a radio and all my gear and keep up with the fucking platoon commander everywhere I went. And so I'm earning brownie points with everybody that I'm supposed to be, but every opportunity they have to fuck me, they fuck me, where I either can't go out on libo, or they're making me a part of the ship platoon and giving me shitty working party stuff, or that fucking gunny that didn't like me. We're doing when we're in Thailand, they bring Thai Marines on, or Thai military onto the ship, and we do exchange of training. We're teaching them gun tactics and ground fighting and shit, and they're teaching us Muay Thai. So we're doing a lot of sparring. And this gunny, he's a big martial arts guy. So he's having us all spar, and he has me spar the biggest. This dude, also Brooke, This motherfucker, this is one of those guys that like came from the fleet, been to Iraq, Afghanistan, and at night he would like, in the middle of the night, just like having like hardcore night terrors on ship where he's like, it's quiet and he's in his sleep like, kill that somebody shoot that motherfucker. And we're all like, we're just like, nobody wake him up, nobody touch him. But he makes me like spar this dude. This dude's like fucking 100 pounds heavier than me. And I'm sparring with this dude. I'm getting like the fuck beat out of me, but I'm serving him up too. And after, it backfires on him because then me and Alsobrook become good fucking friends. Like he's like, man, you're good with me, dude. Like you're worth your salt. You know what I mean? But every opportunity he gets, this gunny just keeps fucking me over and fucking me over. But again, the landing force commander and some other good leadership like see me really excel in a lot of different training scenarios that we're doing, whether it's survival shit in the jungle or obstacle courses or whatever, maneuvers. And I get recommended, there's another deployment right after this for the Black Sea. And they're like, we're gonna recommend you for this, you can sign up for it, we'll let you jump on. And I'm still just a Lance Corporal. So I sign up for that deployment. Southeast Asia basically ends with, you know, it's all good training and shit. You know, we got to go to Thailand. Thailand was fun. I partied so hard in like middle school and high school that by the time I joined the Marine Corps, like I was kind of over like drinking and partying, so I became like daddy. Like I was kind of like over watching Marines. Like when we did get released into Thailand, I was like the guy like banging on doors, like getting dudes dressed, pulling them off of hookers. Like we gotta go, we gotta get back to the ship, dog. Or we're all fucked, like rallying guys, getting guys that are blacked out drunk back to the ship. Banana Show for sure saw that. Dude saw a girl make make change from her pussy. That shit was crazy. Yeah, Thailand was fucking wild. Malaysia was wild with hookers. Before we left on deployment, again, coming from being like so poor and so broke all the time, that this deployment was this opportunity to like save money. Before I left on deployment, I took out like 600 bucks out of an ATM and then cut up my credit and debit card. And I only had 600 bucks for the whole deployment. So I didn't really party that much. Like when everybody went into the city, and I was in trouble a lot too, so I didn't get to go out as much as everybody else. I made it home with like 50 bucks still after the deployment because I didn't spend hardly any money. I didn't go out too much. When I came home, I had like 20 grand in the bank, and I helped use that to get my company going even more and shit. But yeah, I didn't party a whole lot. I stayed on ship and trained. I did a lot of, I ran on the beaches a lot wherever we were in port if we had any downtime. I was like so addicted to like just smoking myself, and I was getting high off that shit. I was like literally getting the endorphin rush, and it was the most fun I feel like I could have. When we were in Japan, right before we were supposed to go on ship and go island hop, again, you know, you deploy and all these fucking, you know, you get all these guys from different units, different parts of the country, different lifestyles come together to train, and they're all getting hammered together, a bunch of wild, young 18, 19-year-old kids. And one night, there was a fight at the beachhead. And then those two Marines that got into a fight with some guys over some chicks playing pool, they were supposed to, you know, whoever wins this game gets to talk to the chicks, blah, blah, blah type of shit. They get into a fist fight there, and then they come back to the barracks, and they're all fucking hopped up, right? They already been in a scrap, and they're drunk. They get back to the barracks, and I'm on the 4th deck at the end of the hall, and they come up the stairwell, and they get to the top, and apparently they run into some other drunk Marines. And one thing leads to another. Someone breaks a bottle over someone's head, and it goes from like this scuffle in the center. And this is a huge fucking barracks. It's like the hallways are huge. There's like there's got to be a couple hundred guys just on one floor. And this fight that happens in the center on the top floor ends up. I'm in my room with like my 3 other roommates, and we hear like at first we're hearing like just loud shit. We're like, Marines partying. It's Friday night. And then it gets louder and louder, and we're hearing banging, and we're thinking like people are like corporaling, like someone's just fucking coming into rooms, just fucking with guys, and we're like waiting for them to come in. We're like, here they come, they're gonna come into our room next. And they don't come into our room, but it's just louder. We're here screaming, we're like, oh, it's a fight. So we look out the door, and the whole hallway is filled with Marines just fucking pulling at each other and fighting and shit. There's blood on the ceilings and blood on the wall, and we fucking shut the door, and we're like, holy shit. And my, like, again, just being daddy to all these guys in there, all the guys in there, I'm like, nobody fucking go out in the hallway, dude. Just stay in here. It's bad. Nope, don't go out there. And it's like so bad that we look out the window, the base MPs show up, they come inside the building, and then they leave. And the fight's still going on for like a long time. I couldn't say how long, but like more than 10, 15 minutes, this fight is happening. It's getting bigger and bigger and more people. And then finally, someone, I don't remember if like someone sets off an alarm in the building or something, but they basically get everybody out and they get us out in front of the building, and we have to like leave our room and walk past all that shit. And there's broken glass and blood everywhere, all over this fucking hallway. And they put us out in formation in front of the barracks. And they're like, NCIS is there. Guys are like sliced open. Dudes' faces are all busted up. It's like really bad. Someone like fucking beat up there, like between like Navy and Marines. Like there's like lots of casualties. Guys are fucked up. Guys have to go to the hospital. Guys are getting NJP'd, court-martialed and shit. Guys don't get to go on ship with us and go on the float. And we're standing out there in formation. And again, that gunny comes out and goes, hey man, if anybody has anything to say now, if you saw anything or you know who's responsible, you need to come up and say something now. And I fucking crack a joke or something about like, you know, I didn't see anything gunny, but like someone spilled Kool-Aid everywhere or something like that. And just fucking, I got a great laugh, but sure enough, he's like, I'll remember that motherfucker. But that was like the highlight of chaos right before we got on ship. But once we got on ship, it was great. I loved being on ship, man. It was fun. All the training, doing beach raids and shit, being able to go through the jungle, and I loved being in the jungle. It was awesome. In your civilian life, no one wants to be in humidity, right? You're sweaty, it's fucking sticky. But like when you're at work, like it's the best. You're just fucking dirty all day. And, like your eyes and your lungs feel better from being in the humidity all the time. Running through the jungle was fucking amazing. Sleeping in the jungles and shit was so much fun. Looking back, like I get it because like it was reserve units. So you get a lot of these guys that come together and like their shit's not together. They don't know their MOS very well. They don't really want to be there. So there's so many people that are fucked up and we're all being punished for it. And it was shit like gear dumps. Doing gear dumps way too often that took way too long, constantly, and putting us out in formation for shit. That's another thing is like they were so bad at passing word and keeping their Marines informed and wasting everybody's fucking time. And I think part of it was like actual poor decisions, you know, people just not having the right information and being bad at their job, being bad at being just poor leadership. But also I think they were fucking with us too because you know, we're reservists or junior Marines in general. Like it was like their form of hazing us, but constantly just wasting people's times and making us do shit that like, and that was another thing is it drove a lot of guys, it pissed off a lot of guys that were like, again, fleet Marines that had, you know, on the way out become reservists that are like, why the fuck are we doing this? Like, we don't even do this kind of dumb shit in the fleet. This is fucking stupid. And it like solidified to me, like, that's right, this is fucked up. Like, they're not just being a dick to me, like, they're fucked up. They don't know what they're doing, or they're trying to be this way. Like, why is shit so bad? But yeah, just constant fucking gear dumps, showing up to the armory fucking 3 hours early to wait and waking up way too fucking early, waiting in formation to pass word that nobody has forever, to the point where they'll dismiss us. They'll be like, all right, everybody just, you know, stay nearby. We'll find out and pass word. And just doing that like 3 or 4 times in a row for like 5 hours. And you're just like, bro, what's happening? Like, you're making, like, this isn't even punishment hazing. It's not like that anymore. You guys look bad. You're making this whole fucking unit leadership look really bad. And it's shit that they could have passed on to a squad leader. And a squad, like, you didn't have to get the whole fucking company together for this, dog. Like, you could have rallied the leadership, and the leadership could have passed to their Marines. We all got cell phones and shit now. Like, you could have fucking passed all this information down so easily, numerous times throughout my time in the Marine Corps. It was them like rallying every resource and every Marine for something that they could have like done with a phone call or an email or a text message. You're like, how, like, it got to the point where I was like, how is the military even effective? Like, how do we get shit done when shit is this fucked up all the time? Like, it blew my mind. I was like, I couldn't believe that, and you know, it all goes into like, oh, the Marine Corps and the Green Weenie, dude, they keep fucking you. But it baffled me to think that like these these guys are the ones that are in charge of me if we were in some shit. And then it got to, so, you know, fast forward, after that deployment, I come home from Southeast Asia, and I'm home for like a couple of weeks, and I immediately go to Texas to start the workup for the Black Sea deployment. We do that workup. I'm in Texas for like a month. And then when I'm in Texas, my dad has like a massive heart attack, and he has like open heart surgery and shit. And I come home, and he's like basically in recovery, but he's got like no one. Like my mom's not there, my sister's not there. Like there's no one there to take care of him. So now I'm like, oh man, I wanted a deployment hop. What do? I got to help my dad recover. So now I've done this workup, but I come home for like the week before we're supposed to leave, and I have to go to my unit and be like, yo, my dad's fucked up. Like I can't go. I got to stay and take care of my dad. So I stay, and I help my dad recover and shit, get him like walking and taking care of himself and all that shit again. And he's all fucked up too. He worked construction for like 40 years. So his back's fused, his neck's fused. He's had both his hips replaced and shit. He's all tore up. Plus he's had open heart surgery now. And I'm like helping him like lose weight and get his shit together so he can take care of himself again. And it's at this time that I start to feel like what I think is just like soreness, right? Like, oh, my back is like sore. Like I'm getting like spasms in my back. My back's tight, you know? And I don't pay no attention to it. I just keep training, keep doing my thing. And one day we're doing like the CFT on base, just like annual test, combat fitness test. And we're doing it, and I feel like now it's not just like pain, like it's shooting into my ass cheek. And I go to the corpsman, I'm like, hey doc, like I'm good, like I feel good, like I'm fine, but like I got like some shit, like I don't know what it is, like I feel it in my ass now, it was in my back. And the corpsman's like, well, we could send you to like, you know, to the Michael Callahan Federal Hospital on Nellis. And I was like, nah, I don't need to go to the hospital. I'm just like, what should I do? Like, you know, he's like, well, if you're good, you feel all right, just like, you know, just like try and take it easy. I was like, all right, I'll just, you know, I'll be chill. But again, at this time, I'm working like 4 jobs. I'm like training all the time. So I try to like just chill out and take it easy. And then it starts getting worse. It starts like going down my leg into my like hamstrings and shit and into my knee. And it starts scaring me. I'm like, oh shit, okay, I do need to go to a doctor. I need to go see somebody. So I go to the doctors, and the doctors like, at first they're like, it's just a muscle spasm. You're like 22 years old, man. You'll be fine. You're good. Like, just like, you know, chill out. They give me like pain pills and muscle relaxers. They're like, just try to chill a little bit. So I do. I'm like, these are the doctors. They know what's best. And then it gets like real bad. It goes down into my calf, into my feet. It starts going into my other leg. And I'm like panicking. And I'm like, yo, man, like, can we run tests? Like, something's up. Like, this isn't good. And they do like, they won't do my MRIs. They do x-rays, and they notice like the distance. My last 4 discs are like, my lowest 4 discs are like squashed. And they're like, from the x-rays, we could tell that you have like disc degeneration. You have like, they're not herniated, but they're definitely bulging. And you got like stenosis, retrolisthesis, and some other shit. And I'm like, okay, like, so what do we do? Like, does that surgery? Like what? And they're like, no, you're too young for surgery. They're like, you just need to like take it easy. Like you need to like stay at home. Whatever you're doing now, you gotta chill. You're doing too much. It's like, all right. So I quit one of my jobs. I stopped training. I'm like chilling. I'm just like stretching and staying at home and relaxing and like going on walks, because I'm like scared. I'm like, fuck, man, I don't want this to like get worse than it already is. And then one day I go to get up out of bed in the morning, and my back locks up on me, and I'm like having the scariest, worst pain that like I can't fucking get out of bed. And my like that shooting pain into my sciatica. I don't know it at the time, but like it's there, but also like I'm having like these fucking violent spasms in my back. And I'm thinking like, they told me to rest. Like I haven't been doing anything. I haven't been like working out. Like I quit one of my jobs. Like I'm good. I'm chilling. Like I'm confused. I'm like freaking out. I go back to the doctor, and they're like, we're going to send you to physical therapy. You probably just need to like, you know, strengthen some shit in your back. So they send me to physical therapy and it gets worse. Like I start walking with a limp and like I can't like shower correctly. Like I can't, like I have to put a handle in my shower. I can't fucking get dressed. Like now I'm like real fucking scared because like I'm like I went from like 100 miles an hour fucking just working, just constantly hustling hard to doctors being like, hey man, if you don't chill, like you're gonna be in a wheelchair, like you need to fucking relax, because now they're doing my MRIs and they're like, yeah, like they basically tell me like, if you lose bowel control, you need to go to the ER because your nerves are so pinched in your back, like you could shit yourself or piss yourself if something gets like severed or cut off. And like, I went from thinking like, I got this like fitness company that's like going well, and I'm working all these jobs, I'm like making money, I'm saving money. I got money from that deployment. Like I went from like everything being like good to like, yo, you can't work laborious anymore. You may not be able to do that shit ever again. And at this point, like the Marine Corps is like I can't go in and drill anymore. And they're like, what do you want to do? Like, we can give you a new job or you can get out. And I had just been so let down by the Marine Corps that I was like, I'm not gonna get another job, dog. Like being a machine gunner is the coolest fucking thing I've ever done in my life. I was like, I'm just gonna get out. So they med-sept me, and again, I'm listening to these fucking doctors, and they just keep going, rest, rest, stay at home, rest, you need bed rest, bed rest. And it just keeps getting worse and worse to the point where I quit like all my jobs, but like one security job I have. And I'm like, I'm limping everywhere I go. I'm in pain. I'm fucking trying not to eat pain pills. And I'm like, I go into like hardcore depression. Like I never experienced, like even through my childhood, I had never experienced like depression. I've always been like anxious of uncertainty, you know, of my life, but never like what I always, because of all the turmoil, it was always like, oh, one day I'll be able to like have control and do all these things. But now I feel like disabled. Like I'm like, oh, now I can't. Like you're gonna, like you can't work, you can't earn, you can't go be laborious. Like I was such a physical laborious person, and I'm like rethinking my whole life. Like I'm just like, what the fuck just happened? What am I supposed to do? I'm like, I can't get out of bed. I keep having these muscle spasms. I can't sleep at night. And this guy that I was doing security for, he noticed I had been like gone and missing work and shit. And like, while I'm at work, I'm like limping and shit. And he's like, what's up? I was like, you know, my back's bad. And I'm telling him what's going on. And he's like this really wealthy guy. He's actually, he used to own like a casino and hotel in Las Vegas. And he's got a really bad back. And he goes, fuck all that. He's like, I'm gonna send you to my guy. And this dude like pays out of pocket to send me to this like rehab guy, physical therapy. And this is like, now we're like 3 years into like my back problems. Like I've been struggling with this shit for a while. And he sends me to this fucking guy, and within like 2 weeks, like changes everything for me. Like I'm still having like sciatica, but like I'm not having muscle spasms anymore. I can sleep through the night. Like I could take care of myself again. Like I'm, for the first time in like a few years, I'm like, oh shit, I'll probably be all right. And this physical therapist is like, yeah, man, you're not broken. He's like, the doctors actually fucked you. They did the worst thing they could have done, which is tell you to like, bed rest you and tell you just to sit around. That's fucking, he's like, everything, all your shit just got tight. Everything got tight and you atrophied. You stopped, all the little muscles got bad on you. And I just went to physical therapy for like a year, like twice a week. And this guy was like doing like deep tissue shit on me and getting me to like re-strengthen things again. And I started like taking better care of my back. But at this point, like I fucking had like, they got me out, they medically separated me. And I'm still in this like weird, like mental state where I'm like, all right, what am I supposed to do, man? I'm like, at this point, I'm like 23, 24. And I'm like, what am I gonna do? Like the Marine Corps, that's done. My training company, I let that go. I sold off all my gear. I shut the company down. I was like, I can't fucking go to a park and unload my truck and do all that shit. It felt like weak, man. It made me feel it made me feel fucking helpless. Like that was another thing is my whole life I had always felt like I could take care of myself. Like I've always been super independent because couldn't rely on my parents. Extremely independent, always able to solve my own problems, keep my shit together. And it was the first time that I was like I'm gonna have to rely on like the system. Like I'm gonna have to go to other people for help and get people to like not just take care of me, but like I'm gonna need to like I'm gonna have to get on like medication and shit, and I felt like sick, like broken. I felt like sick, and I was like 23 years old, and I felt like it was over. Like, and every doctor I went to kept telling me like, yeah, man, you're gonna be in a wheelchair by the time you're 30. We don't know what to do. Like, you got degenerative disc disease and this, that, and the other, and you can't work hard anymore. And I felt like everything that I thought I was gonna do was over. And I had this moment where I was like scrambling, trying to figure out how to like solve the problem. Like, what do I do now? I don't want to spend another year of like fucking burning through my savings and just sitting around my fucking house. Like, what am I supposed to do? And that's when I was like, I can't work physical anymore. I gotta figure out how to like, I gotta work with my head. Like I'm gonna have to get into like some sort of job where I'm like talking to people. I gotta figure out how to like work with people and talk. And I was like, I'm 23-year-old fucking shithead, you know? I was like, I don't know how to talk to people. I don't know how to talk in front of people. Ever since I was like a little kid, I've been a big into writing, like crazy, weird short stories, or just like growing up with my dad, I was always around a lot of adults in making like really crude jokes, bar jokes and shit. And I always like wrote down shit that I thought was funny and coming up with my own stuff. And I had notebooks full of just like random shit. I was like, I'm gonna go to an open mic. I'm gonna go to like a comedy open mic. Cause I had always thought like, man, I should do comedy. Like that'd be cool. All my buddies in the Marine Corps were like, bro, you should be a comic. And I was like, I'm gonna take my notebooks to an open mic and work on like talking. Cause I don't know how to like to regular like Marines and shit. I could talk with Marines all day, but like a regular job in the civilian world, like I'm not ready for all that shit. And like I can't be someone who like stands up and like gives a presentation and shit like that. So I was like, I'm gonna go to one of these open mics and just start working on just being able to talk and express like ideas and speak clearly and shit. And I went to this open mic at some little dive bar, and it was crazy because I was so nervous that I like pissed myself. Like I've been in a lot of really scary situations. I've never been so scared that I would lose bowel control. But I was like waiting to go up, and there was like 3 people ahead of me, and I was like, oh, I gotta piss. And I went and pissed, and there's like 2 people ahead of me. I was like, damn, I gotta piss again. And I go piss, a little piss. I come back, it's like 1 more person. I'm like, damn, I gotta piss again. And I go and I piss, and it's barely any piss. And I come back, and I'm like, I'm about to go up, and I can feel myself pissing, and I'm like, what the fuck, bro? Like I was so, the adrenaline, I was so nervous. And I go up and I do like 5 minutes, and I'm like reading from my notebook. I get some laughs, but I didn't have like this incredible set or anything. But it was like awesome. I come off stage, and I had invited like a couple of friends. I come off stage, I'm like, man, that was free. That was legal. I didn't get hurt. No one got hurt. That was like one of the best adrenaline rushes I've ever had. I was like, I'm doing this now. So for like the next like couple years, I started like hitting the open mic scene in Vegas pretty hard, doing all the different like dive bar shows and shit. And I was getting better. I was getting good at organizing my thoughts, getting better at like understanding what a joke was and shit. I'm like reading all these books on comedy and public speaking. I got like heavy into like personal development. I started reading all these self-help books and shit, neuro-linguistic programming, like really trying to like pull myself out of this like depression and trying to like get good. I wanted to get really good at being able to talk to people and work with like groups of people. I got into sales and shit, and I'm trying to like, I just wanted to get like really good at speaking and conveying ideas and like winning people over, you know, like getting people on your side and being able to share stories and make people excited about shit like that, you know. And this family that I did security for at like a community they lived at, they were really nice, and they were like, you know, you're a good guy. We want to help you make some money. We're doing like we're selling commodities in Chicago. You should come out and stay with us in Chicago. We'll get you into the business. We'll help you make some money. And I was like, hell yeah, let's go. So I moved to Chicago for like a winter, and I'm doing sales out there with them. And I go to, up until then, I had only ever done stand-up in like dive bars, smoky bars. There's TVs, slot machines and shit going, nobody's paying attention. And I was like, I'm gonna hit a mic while I'm out there. And I go to this little comedy club called the Comedy Shrine in Aurora. And I go to it, and it's the first comedy club I had ever been inside of where like there's the room where the show is at, and the bar is outside of the room. It was like for comedy. And I go in, I do a set, and I fucking crush. I was like, oh shit, like this is what comedy's supposed to be. Like you're supposed to be in like a club like this. And it like reignited me for comedy. And then that family was like, we got another business opportunity in NorCal. And they were like, yeah, the money sounded real good. They're like, it's solar. And they were working with some other people they partnered with, and those people kind of pitched it. They were like, yeah, there's all this money. So I moved to NorCal with like no place to stay. I'm basically like living in my car. I'm like sleeping on a cot next to someone's house that already has too many people staying in it. Like I'm just hustling in NorCal. And the money's good, but there's no leads. So we have to door knock. So I'm like knocking on people's doors in the middle of the summer and shit. And I'm getting door slammed in my face. And I don't realize, like, bro, you got a scar on your face. You should not be doing door-to-door sales. Like, no one fucking wants to trust you enough to sit at their dinner table. And I'm sitting in my car one day, like, eating a can of ravioli. And I'm just like, fuck, man. Like, I know how to work hard and, like, sacrifice and like, really, like, go after shit. I should do something that I like to do. And I fucking literally started my car up, drove back to Vegas, and I just started doing comedy full time. I got, like, a shitty little retail job and just did as many shows and mics as I could do for like the next 2 years. And then I started coming to LA, and I would come to LA to like, a friend of mine produced like this little show at a Hooters. It was like on Hollywood Boulevard on the second story of Hooters. He had like this weekly show, and I would come out and help him produce that show. And I was taking writing classes, and I was at like Second City just trying to like get better at comedy and being on stage. And finally I was like, I gotta fucking move to LA, because I kept going out and hanging out at the clubs at like the Improv and the Comedy Store and the Laugh Factory, and I would see all these guys like Theo Vaughn and Fahim Anwar and fucking Amir K and Neil Brennan and Chappelle, and I see these guys on stage at these clubs, and I was like, I gotta move to LA, bro. Like, I gotta get out of the dive bar scene in Vegas. I was such like a rough around the edges, like dirty, filthy, Marine, fucking rough street kid comic. All my shit was so wild. I was like, I need to hone my shit. I want to be a club comic. So I moved to LA, but at the time I owned a condo in Vegas, and I was like, I'm not gonna fucking pay mortgage in Vegas and rent in LA. I'm not gonna live in a house with 10 fucking dudes. I've been there, done that. I'm not doing that shit. It's like, I'm just gonna live in my car. So I had like a little Toyota Prius. I loaded that shit up with like a little bed and a bunch of clothes, and I fucking moved to LA. And 4 days after I moved to LA, I got hired as a door guy at one of the comedy clubs. And now I'm like working as a door guy at a comedy club. I'm living in my car. I'm like fucking doing it. I'm doing like so much stand-up. I'm getting so much more stage time and learning and growing. But then within like a couple of months of being there, because of my style of comedy and being in LA, I started getting like shunned a little bit, because I was rough and rowdy. I was talking about a lot of shit that LA just doesn't particularly like from a straight white dude, you know? And I started getting way less stage time. And the only place I was getting up regularly was at this Hooters show, which was fucking great. We became like a really good little underground show. But I had this moment where I was like, fuck, I moved to LA and like, I'm not getting developed. I don't have any stage time. Like, what am I doing? Like, who am I supposed to be performing for if nobody in LA wants to hear me? And I realized, I was like, who are the guys that told me if I didn't become a Marine, or if I didn't become a comic, I was wasting my life? And it's all my buddies in the Marine Corps. I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna perform for the Marines. So I sent 400 letters out to Marine Corps units. And I was like, hey, I'm a Marine, I'm a comic, I'll come perform for you guys anytime, any place for free. And I got my first email back from one, and I went and did the first show on Cinco de Mayo, 2018. And I didn't know what to expect, so I didn't bring any other comics with me. I was like, I know the Marine Corps, like this could go south. Like it could get canceled last minute, it could show up and be weird, it just could be shitty. So I was like, I'm just gonna go with the first one on my own, you know? And I brought this speaker with me because that was another thing when I came to LA. I wasn't a lot. There's a lot of open mics out there that you have to pay $5 to like get up and perform. And I was like, man, I'm not trying to pay to perform. So I was like, I'm just gonna buy a speaker, mic stand, stool, cable, all that shit. And I went out to the beach and I would busk and I would just like be out there for hours, just like talking shit to people, running jokes. So I had all the equipment. It's like, I'll bring that shit. And I went to Camp Pendleton on Cinco de Mayo and I did 45 minutes for 250 Marines, and they treated me like I was fucking Dave Chappelle, bro. I crushed. I was like, oh shit, this is who I'm supposed to be performing for. Like, this is my crowd. And like, that everything like changed after that. I stopped like, not like stop trying to be like clean, you know, I definitely still wanted to like get better and hone my shit, get good at talking about dirty, dark, fucked up shit. But it was less about like, oh man, how do I perform well to get into these clubs? And more of like, no. How do I do really well for the people who like me? Like, how do I do better for them? And I started performing for the Marines more and more and more. And now I like load a van up with comics in Hollywood. I find like junior comics, guys that are new, guys that are unknown. Like, yo, man, you want to get into a van on Friday and go perform for a couple hundred Marines? And guys are like, oh shit, like, yeah, dude, let's go. And it's still free. In 2019, I turned it into a 501c3, thinking that would like help it, you know, and it did. I've, you know, produced a couple comedy specials for Vet TV. They found us and they paid us to do some specials. So there's some money in the bank now. But our only overhead is like renting a van, filling it with gas. That's it. Like all the shows in SoCal I do for free. But I lived in my car in LA for almost 4 years. And it was like, it became like this thing of, I'm working at this comedy club, living in the car, trying to do more shows for the Marines. And I finally found my happy place. It was crazy. I was like living in my car, you know, like showering at the gym every morning, but I was so fucking happy. Like it was the best I'd ever, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be, doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. And it was just like stand up, like the Marine Corps saved my life, and then stand up comedy saved it again, you know? Like before I joined, I thought I was gonna end up in prison or dead. And then when I got out and my back was fucked up, I thought I was gonna be like disabled, and I thought I was gonna get addicted to pain pills, and I thought I was gonna be like, I thought I was gonna be like a welfare person. Like I met those people. My dad was basically that person because he's all fucked up physically and shit. And I was so scared of that I started doing stand up to try and like just grow as a person, just try and be a speaker, you know? And then I found myself a few years later, like living in my car, chasing the dream. And it's taken me to like so many places. In 2019, I went to, it's funny, I was living in my car, but I went to Edinburgh for Fringe. I went to they have a comedy festival every year, and it's the entire month of August. So I've been living in my car, but I go to Edinburgh for a month and I'm in an Airbnb sleeping in a bed for a whole month. So I'm like, oh fuck, I'm like on vacation. Like I get to sleep in a bed. And I got to, I didn't have my own show. A lot of comics go there and do their own hour. I just opened for comics, but I had so many friends there and people that I met, and I was like barking for them and helping promote their show. Because the show that we did on Hollywood Boulevard at the Hooters, we had like a street team that I kind of ran. And I got really good at like barking and talking to people on the street and just getting people interested in the show. That was like boot camp for barking, because by the time I went to Edinburgh, that was like the fucking Super Bowl, because all these people are trying to promote for their shows. And I'm like so good at barking now that like I have people come up to me in Edinburgh that either live there or they're just there for the festival. They're like, yo man, we come every year. We've never seen anybody like promote like you. Like you're good at this shit. And I was helping my friends like fill their shows. I opened 3 shows a night every night for 25 days straight. To this day, it's like the coolest thing I've ever done. It was amazing. I'd never been to Europe before. It was like this beautiful old city being in Edinburgh, and I'm performing every night. I'm meeting all these new comics. It was fucking nuts. I'm living in like an Airbnb and shit. And then I come back to LA and I'm like back in the hallway at this comedy club. And I'm just like living in my car again. I'm like, fuck, I'm broken now. Now I've seen how cool it is and how cool it can be. And then that show that we were doing on Hollywood Boulevard started getting a lot of traction. We were like doing a really good job. And we got a date to have a show at the store, at the Comedy Store. And they gave us the fucking Sunday between Christmas and New Year's. That was our date. They were like, here's your shot to like sell it out. And we fucking still sold it out. We had a killer show. And they gave us our next date for like April of the next year. And then in March, the country shut down. COVID happened. And all that momentum I had been building in LA just fucking, everything shut down. And for like, it shut down, and for like a week, I tried to stick around LA. I like kind of hung out with some friends, did some acid and shit, and like just tried to like be cool with it. And I was like, but after like a week of doing drugs on your friend's couch, you're like, man, I'm not an artist anymore. I'm just a drug addict, dude. Like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. I don't want to do this. So I go back to Vegas, to my condo, and I'm like sleeping in my bed again. I'm eating food. My sister lives with me. I'm like, okay, this is cool for like the first month. I'm like, all right, I'm well rested. I'm well fed. I'm doing some writing. Month 2, I'm like bored. I'm going out. I'm doing like hikes and shit. I just go out into the desert to Red Rock. Month 3, I'm like smoking weed again, like real bored. I'm like, all right. I went from working like 120 hours a week, living in the car, to like now I've been home for 3 months. By month 5, I've never had like a hardcore mental breakdown, but I like freaked out because I hadn't been sleeping, I hadn't been eating, and I tried to like get out of the house. I went to a friend's house, and I was like, I need to go be around people. And I went to her house for this barbecue, and she saw me and she's like, hey, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm just not sleeping, She's like, come here real quick. And she like brought me off to the side, and I immediately just started crying. I started freaking the fuck out. And she was like, oh shit. She like pulled me in her room. She was like, what's going on? I was like, I don't know what to do. Like stand up, everything I had, I put into stand up. Like the country shut down. I don't know what's gonna happen. Like everything's over. And she like force fed me Xanax and Klonopin. She was like, you gotta calm the fuck down, dude. Like you're freaking out. And she made me like get into therapy. I had to like go see a therapist the next day and shit, and had to figure all that shit out. Through therapy, I found out, obviously I get a fuckload of my self-worth from like my ability to accomplish things and just work. I get a lot of my self-worth from work. And so during COVID, timing worked out where a friend of mine, when I first moved to LA, I did like these character reels where, you want to I thought like, oh, I'm in LA, maybe I'll get into acting, I'll like put up some monologues on the casting sites. And I did like this Russian character. It's like just as a joke, just me like riffing, guy in a tracksuit. And a friend of mine posted on Instagram, and she goes, hey, does anybody do like a Russian character, a Russian accent? Send me a clip. So I sent it to her, and she got me booked in a Call of Duty commercial, and I made like $5,000 in like 4 hours. And I was like, oh shit, like I can make money doing characters. This is cool. Oh fuck yeah. And so to this day, that's still the only commercial I've ever booked. But so that was during COVID, and I went to, when I realized like, oh, I can make money doing this, I need to like update these character reels. I got to do more of these. So a buddy of mine that's a cinematographer, I was like, hey man, I need to reshoot some monologues. The other guy I use, I don't know him anymore. Can you set up a camera for me? I got to do like some characters. He's like, yeah, come on over. And I come to his house, and he didn't just like set up a camera on like a blank wall like the other guy did. He had like lighting and shit. He like set it up all sexy, made it look real cool. And then I did like these 3 characters. I have like the Russian guy, a bro, and like an East Coast guy. And it's just me doing my bits, just me doing like jokes and shit. But it's me and these characters fucking around. And we tape for like an hour. And then I go through and cut them up into 1-minute pieces to put on these casting sites. But they look so good, like the production looks so good in them, and they're funny. Like some of them are pretty good because it's just my they're my bits. And he goes, we should do something with these. And I'm like, yeah, we could like, TikTok was like big, and I was like, we should like create a TikTok account for them and put them up on TikTok just to see what happens. And we did, and they fucking popped. Like it became like, we got like some traction, and then I created an Instagram for it, carried over into the Instagram popped, and now strangers are finding me from these character monologues. And then like a year later, we were like, we should see if we could sell tickets to a live show from all these people. So in LA, we sold like 80 tickets to people who had never met me before, didn't know me, just people that found me online. they came out to the show and I did an hour for them and I fucking murdered. Like they just like performed for the Marines. Just all these people that loved my wild monologue shit coming to see me do a show. And I was like, fuck, now I can like get on the road and do shows for people. And I did one in like San Diego, Arizona. I mean, I always do them in Vegas. Easier to sell tickets there being from there. But now that's what I'm working on, is just trying to like get out on the road and do more shows. Like my two big things is trying to do more shows for the Marines and trying to do shows just in general on the road. You know, if I could do 52 shows a year every weekend, that's just one show a weekend. I mean, realistically, you want to do like 2 shows a night, Friday, Saturday, maybe even Thursday show. But that's like my main shit that I'm focused on now, is just trying to spread the word about the Marine shows for Rapid Fire and trying to push people to skip modes now, man. Just now stand-up is like taking over my life. And with Rapid Fire, it's become like, you know, it just started out as like, man, I just need to get stage time. Who should I perform for? And like, oh, these crowds are so great. But now it's kind of like become this thing where it's like, I owe the Marine Corps. As bad as they fucked me, you know, they also saved my fucking life, man. And also like Marines are just the best hang ever, you know. It's funny, people meet me and, you know, one thing, through one way or another, people are like, oh man, you're a Marine, or like, oh, you totally in the military, I could tell, you know. But it's like, I've been fucked up for a long time. Even before I joined the military, my sense of humor and just how I am and being organized and like being kind of a control freak, I've been that way since I was a kid. And I think that says a lot about the Marine Corps. I think the Marine Corps certainly makes you a certain way, but the Marine Corps also brings in a lot of people that are already a certain way, you know? I don't think you have to be a Marine to be that way. So the monologue that got me booked in that Call of Duty commercial is, it's the Russian guy, and he's basically talking about, he's like, when I have baby, I shoot baby. I shoot baby full of vaccination to protect from disease. He goes, he's like, I used to have job. People see me, they see the scar, the eyebrows, the knuckle hair. They think I'm some crazy guy. Man, I'm just like you. I have dog. Fuck, I have dog. I have job. I have job just like you. I work. I train medical dog for little girl who have a seizure. When she have a seizure, the dog, he run away. So then when we find her and there is no dog, we know she have a seizure. Shit like that. Or just the bro, his name is Chody, or Cody with an H. Friends call me Chody. He goes, what's up, dude? My name's Cody. I run a solar panel cleaning company with my dad, dude. I like to fucking get up on top of people's roofs and make their fucking solar panels nice and clean, dude. Sometimes I'll sneak into people's houses and I'll leave little chocolates on their pillow. And people are like, Cody, how'd you get in my fucking house? Dude, don't even sweat it, bro. I'm here for you and I'm here for your family. I'll get in there and do whatever needs to be done, bud. East Coast guy is Anthony. He goes, what's up? I'm Anthony. I'm Spider-Man's gay neighbor. I've been living in Hell's Kitchen for about 15 years now. And if you ask me, I don't even like that little redheaded bitch always coming in the middle of the night. Where's Spider-Man? Where's Spider-Man? Shut up, bitch. He ain't here right now. Shit like that. But those are like literally the first monologues, the first, even before I filmed with my buddy, those were the first 3 things I did for those characters. Cody goes, he's like, I like to drive around town and find people's missing animals, dude. Sometimes I'll find a dead animal and there ain't even a missing sign for it, dude. I'll just hold on to it, put it in my freezer, because one day I might see that sign and be like, fuck, I got that puppy, dude. And I'll call and be like, hey man, I got your dog. He's dead, but I got him. Shit like that. But now I've like, I literally have like there's like hundreds of clips on there now on the Instagram, and the name is Skip Mo's, because when me and my buddy started doing it, we were trying to figure out a name. We were like, we'll do like sketches, which sketches are so hard to make and do well, you know, production-wise. People who do them well, my hat is off to them, because it's so difficult to shoot something that is a sketch that's got like scenes and characters and a location and make it look good and sound good. It's very difficult. We've tried to shoot some and I haven't been successful at it. So it's supposed to be sketches and monologues. That's where Skip Mo's came from. But the monologues are so much easier to do. My buddy sets up the camera and it's just me and I'm just fucking going straight at him with bits, just different jokes, material, some shit that doesn't make it to the stage. But oftentimes a lot of shit that I write to be a monologue turns out to be like a joke that I'll start doing on stage. That's kind of like my main things right now, man, is just trying to write for more monologues for the characters and like ideally find character work. That's another thing, was when I moved to LA, I was like, you know, maybe I could do some acting. And I took like some acting classes and shit. I had done like improv at improv schools, and that was fun. Make you like work with other people in a scene, and it makes you like yes and all that, and really improvise with nothing. But acting is like, I met actors, and I got friends who are actors, and I've taken the acting classes, and I realized like, I'm not an actor, man. Like, it's that people I meet in LA, like you meet these people that care about acting like so much. They take it so seriously to me. And to me, it's like, kind of comes back to like, it's just a game. Like, I can't get that serious about it. And I don't want to be in those people, like, people take acting as serious as I take stand-up. Like, I fucking love stand-up. I obsess over it. I'm constantly like working on it and trying to get better, and like, you know, even overthinking it, but really obsessed with the art of it. And I care a lot about it, and I'm like kind of like a snob about it, and I take it really seriously. I really like the art. And when people come and try and do it that don't care about it as much, it's you're kind of wasting my time and wasting the resources for everybody who cares about it. So I don't want to do that to actors. Like, I don't care about acting that way. I don't need to be, you guys, I don't want that lifestyle. It's the auditions and preparing for a role and all that shit. I don't want to do none of that, man. But characters, I love fucking around doing characters. So hopefully, you know, in the future, being able to like do character work with people on their projects and shit. It's hard enough for me to remember jokes. I can't remember lines someone else wrote and try and like fake an emotion and this is how I feel about this, and I also have a secret about, fuck all that, man. I just want to talk about my dick, you know what I mean? I just want to tell jokes, bro. So, I mean, you can find the character monologues is Skitmos. It's Skitmos. That, if you find that, that's got my personal page, and my personal page has, it's got a link to the Rapid Fire. That's Rapid Fire Comedy Tour. It's like .org if you want to go to the website, but the Instagram is Rapid Fire Comedy Tour. We're a nonprofit. Again, like, all the shows are free. What's funny is people are always like, why are they free? It's like, because I know better than to ask the Marine Corps for money, dude. And that's another thing. So these shows we do for the Marines are like, it's underground, man. It's punk rock. I send these letters out. They end up in the hands of like platoon commanders and company first sergeants and shit. And they, you know, they're having an evolution or something in Pendleton or 29 Palms. And they just, after a long fucking shitty week at, you know, wherever they're at, they can bring us out to the field. And again, like, anywhere, anytime, like, I have all the gear. I got a generator. We could do it. I mean, the only thing that sucks is if it's raining, you know what I mean? We'll find a covered structure to get under, but I have all the gear. And it's like, it's very much like in the dirt, in the middle of the night with like young kids with guns in their hands. Like, it's exciting. It's punk rock. Like, these shows are not meant to be like, it's not meant, everybody's like, oh, you should film it and put out stuff. It's not even meant to be like stand-up specials or like clips or like, how do I make money doing this? It's not about that. It's about loading a van full of comics up, going out into the fucking field in the middle of the night and putting on a fucking rowdy, wild fucking comedy show for young Marines. And it's fucking awesome. But because of that, you know, there's no money coming in. We got to rent a van, fill it with gas. And sometimes if there's enough money in the account, we'll take comics out for like some in and out after a show. This year, a Marine unit in somewhere from, it was like they had a year-end all-star event, and they brought us out to this big event in the Midwest that they had wanted to celebrate the top 10% of their Marines. And they're like, we'll pay you and everything. And they did. They paid for our flight. They paid for our hotel. They put us in a very nice hotel. I brought me, another comic out, brought my photographer out. And we had an excellent show. It was so much fun. I can't say enough good things about that. But they were like, yeah, we're going to pay you. And like, it's been 3 months. I still haven't been paid. Like, trying to get paid from the military and from the federal government, fucking nightmare. And anytime you try to get money going, more people stick their heads in, their noses in. They're like, who are you? What are you doing? What are you talking about? And, you know, in the beginning when I first started doing these Marine Corps shows, I was so eager to do them that I was like, yeah, we'll come, like, whatever you want. You know, if you don't want us to talk about something, we won't talk about it, you know, because I get it. Like, maybe there was a suicide in the unit, you know, maybe you don't want us to talk about politics. I get it. Like, we're good enough at our job that we can still be funny and not talk about certain things. But then that opens the door for censorship. And that's a problem, because sometimes you go do a show and they might be like, don't talk about this, don't talk about this. You're like, cool. But then you talk about some shit they didn't expect you to even talk about, and they go, oh fuck, we didn't we didn't know that, shut the show down. And I've had that happen where, you know, we've had a show shut down before because the door for censorship was already open and they felt like they could do that. So now when units hit me up, I let them know off the top, like, hey, we're going to talk about sex, drugs, religion, politics, race, gender, all that shit, and many more. So if that's an issue, let us know before we come out. And, you know, if you try to get paid, when the people who cut the check start to hear about that, especially in today's world where, you know, we're trying to appeal to everybody and everybody's feelings, it can be difficult to get a gig, which is why it's easier just to send letters out and be like, yo, you let us know what fucking range you're gonna be out, what gate to come through, and what time you want the show to start, and we'll fucking be there. And that's rapid fire, man. So we operate off donations is the point I'm getting at. So I just want to spread word and let people know we're out there so they can donate. Go to the website, rapidfirecomedytour.org. Thank you so much for letting me come and share my story. It's funny, I've always thought about, like, I don't do a lot of podcasts because it's a lot of comics being like, hey man, come do my podcast. And it's like, most of the time it's like, man, we could just had a beer and smoked a joint. We didn't have to do a podcast, bud. But there's always opportunity to go to podcasts and like actually like share your story. Less of like, let's hang out and try and be funny, and more of like, yo, tell us your story, tell us who you are. And I'm always, you know, for my own reasons, I've always been nervous to like share my whole story of the Marine Corps because sometimes, to be honest, man, I don't feel like I got to do what I wanted to do with the Marine Corps, and it kind of, I still hold a little bit of anger about that shit, and I'm like slightly a little bit ashamed for not being able to have the Marine Corps experience that I had built up in my head and be the Marine I thought I was gonna be, you know? So I just appreciate the opportunity to really be able to share it in full.